Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. We are going to start this week's meeting off with a moment of silence to remember Club 99 member Frank Sewall. Thank you. To start things off for today's meeting, we have the four-way test prayer and pledge led by Maha Witherington, followed by guest introductions from Colin Crawford and two new member introductions with new membership chair Ross Burnett. A quick reminder for everybody, as we get started today, we ask that you silence your phones during the meeting. With that, we'll invite Maha to the podium to kick things off.
Good afternoon, Rotarians and friends. Please join me in the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it be beneficial for all concerned? I kindly ask you to bow your heads and join me for a prayer. Dear God, thank you for allowing us another day and another meeting at the Rotary Club, Club 99, among friends and members and all the hands that prepared our food today. I ask you, Lord, to bless our meeting, bless our speakers, and make it enjoyable for everyone. I ask you, Lord, to bless the natural state, our state, the state of Arkansas, and please, God, bless the United States of America. Amen. Please join me at the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Enjoy the meeting.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to welcome a number of guests today and the members who have brought them. So when I say your name, please stand up so that we can recognize you. And so we'll begin. Jana Wolf is here with as the guest of Kim Kirkman. John Sidery, I hope I got that right, the guest of Elizabeth Clogston. Pete Guess with Fran Carter. Debbie Goolsby with Bill Goolsby, Jana Ronquist and Carly Barnett from the Clinton School, Dee Smith with Angela Stroud, Christopher Tyler Burks with Elizabeth Small, James Owen with Jennifer Glasgow, and Judge Morris Buzz Arnold. Here is the guest of Chris Mangum, and Dr. Patrick Osum, the guest of Teresa Osum. We also have from the Paragold Club, Mr. Tim Rand. So welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining us today.
Isn't it great whenever we can bring two new members to the club? I'm pleased to welcome Janet Marshall to Club 99. Janet's an alumni of Baylor University, and we will all have the opportunity to watch her Bears get defeated by the Razorbacks in men's basketball November 9th, so please tune in. She is the interim chief development officer at Baptist Health Baptist Health Foundation. She has an extensive 20-plus year career working in philanthropy, serving organizations such as the Arkansas Bar Association, the Methodist Foundation for Arkansas, and a very near and dear to my heart, Carti, who took care of my dad when he had cancer. Thank God he's in remission due to their expertise. She is a native of Wynne, Arkansas. Her father is a 64-year Rotarian of the Wynne Rotary Club and just received his second Paul Harris Fellow Award. At 92 years old, he's still very active and goes early each week to fill the glasses with tea or water. We hope you're watching online, sir. Please join me in welcoming Janet. I am also pleased for our second new member to announce Charlie Porter to Club 99. So Charlie and I have a lot in common. We're both chili connoisseurs and financial advisors. Charlie has been with Stephens as an advisor since '07 and was baptized by fire during the great financial crisis. He and his brother John started a great fundraiser, Chili Fights in the Heights, benefiting the Arkansas Food Bank, which is November 9th, by the way, in 2010 after running a smaller chili cook-off with Harvest Fest. I'm currently on both these committees. That's great. He was a member of the Hat Club of Little Rock from 2011 to 2023 and served on the board from 2014 to 2018 and as club president from 16 to 18. He was also on the Riverfest board from 2014 to 2017. Charlie and his wife Beth, who owns the one and only Eggshells in the Heights, reside in Little Rock along with their 2 daughters and several rescue pups. When he's not cheering on his girls at their various sporting events, he enjoys spending time outdoors with his family and friends, hiking, fishing, and hunting. Welcome, Charlie Porter to Club 99.
All right, thank you, Maha, Colin, and Ross, as well as our greeters this morning, Sarah Bennings, Missy Duffy, Rick Fleetwood, and Kristen Nicholson. Thank you all for the smiling faces up front, and welcome to Club 99. Janet and Charlie, we are excited to have you both with us. We are starting off announcements with a thank you to all of our volunteers over the past week. Last Tuesday, we had fun grilling up burgers and hot dogs for the Dunbar Bobcats football team. We were treated to a few cheers from the cheer squad and were able to feed the team as they head into playoffs. They're currently ranked number 2 in the conference. We wish them luck this weekend. A big thank you to Dunbar Chair Misty Tharp, Grill Master Don Cole, and all the volunteers that showed up to help out. We also had the Drug Take Back this Saturday. Drug Take Back Chair Courtney Little and team manned the booth in the Park Plaza Mall parking lot. Thank you all for making our medicine cabinet safer. And a quick aside, I wanted to congratulate our guest speaker from last weekend. Patrick Harrington actually won the inaugural Simmons Bank Championship Golf Tournament this weekend. We had a lot of volunteers that are in the club that were working out there as well, so thank you all for helping to show off our city on national TV. Looking forward, we get to start off the weekend with a little fun reading. This Thursday, we will be publishing the annual report summarizing past President Natalie Goddati's amazing year of 5-way tests and growing our collective fun. Please be on the lookout for it. It is a quick read, but a great reminder of the large high heels that she left for me to fill this year. Next, it is the end of the month, so we have our next new member video, highlighting Club 99ers around the world. Please turn your attention to the screen to see this month's highlighted member.
My name is Billy Rowenbeck, and I own Pulaski County Title. So I was really fortunate as a youngster to be able to travel with my grandparents. They were relatively young for grandparents. And fortunately, they had time off in the summer, a lot of time off in the summer. So we went for months at a time in an RV, Winnebago, and we went all over the United States. We gradually made it across the United States into Canada for each trip. And I was really fortunate that although it was unsafe, I was the navigator. I sat on the hump of the RV and it would get so hot that I'd have to sit on a pillow. I would somewhat plot out our path and pick the locations that we would spend the night at the campgrounds. I was at an age, early teens, where I could remember most of that to this day. I mean, I know pretty much the path we took for each trip. It was a great way to grow up, and the learning experience for a youngster in that environment was incredible. So one of my fondest memories with my grandparents on these trips, there were quite a few of them, but kind of my favorites were Yellowstone National Park, Niagara Falls, Grand Canyon, kind of the more visible ones. But then there was also this one to Kingston in Canada, which was unexpected. We went to a Civil War fort in Canada, and then we went on a boat ride to 1,000 Islands. So you had the big picture ones that you look forward to because everybody knows what they are and you've seen pictures of them. But then there were some kind of off the beaten path smaller ones that made a pretty favorable impression as well. You know, following that period of my life where I had so much opportunity with them, you know, then you graduate from high school and you go to college and you drop into a career. And my career had a lot of demands on me, and so I didn't travel much at all for a long period of time. And then a couple of years ago, I kind of got back with my roots a little bit and started traveling more. And my wife Lizzie and I went to Yellowstone and hiked 60 miles over a 5-day period. And then more recently, I have an 8-month-old Kimber. We were trying to think, okay, she's only 8 months old, she probably won't remember it, but how can we kind of pick up on where we left off with Yellowstone during COVID? And we went to St. Louis. We could drive there, didn't have to put her on a plane, and went to the Gateway Arch, which of course is a park, a national park as well. So that was fun.
Thank you, Billy, for sharing such a great family tradition. As a fellow parent of young kids, I think it's important to overcome the difficulties of being able to travel with littles so they can have that bigger world view. I hope you guys continue to get to see the world together for a very long time. To continue with our Rotary Year theme of global hearts and local hands, I've decided to use my President's Minute to highlight Rotary clubs around the globe. There are more than 46,000 clubs worldwide. We'll take a minute to learn about one other club a week from their history, membership, or special projects that they support. This week, we will continue up the list of the largest clubs in the United States. We are almost breaking into the top 10. Number 11 is one of the few clubs that is both larger and lower than us, San Antonio, Texas. The San Antonio Club was founded in 1912 and will be celebrating their 112th year of service this Friday. Their focus has been on youth and education since day one, from supporting local orphans and Boy Scout troops to establishing the Youth Education Foundation in 1984, a scholarship that has supported hundreds of local students over the past 40 years. They've also established the Sam J. Ricklin Rotary Diploma Plus program, the largest dropout prevention program in the nation that provides monetary incentive and mentors for good grades and attendance. They also continue their Kingdom of Kids program, a hands-on service program that builds playgrounds and sports fields in underserved areas of the city. But they are not just focused on local kids. They helped to fix the roof of the Alamo, forever may it be remembered, and they were able to host the 2001 Rotary International Convention, where they invited more than 24,000 people from 133 different countries to celebrate Rotary and show off their city, where they were also able to introduce a new idea. They launched Rotary International's very first District Donor Advised Fund, which continues in perpetuity to benefit their district. So with that, we will toast the Rotary Club of San Antonio, Texas, the 52nd Rotary Club founded, and their legacy of letting their actions speak louder than words. Thank you. Next, I am excited to invite our panelists up. If you will help me welcome Rex Nelson, Robert Kuhn, and Jay Barth up to the front. I'll read their bios real quick. While they're coming up, we will start off with moderator Rex Nelson. Rex is one of the most high-profile writers and speakers in the state. As senior editor of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, he writes 3 columns a week and essays for the cover of newspaper's Sunday Perspective section. He's the author of 3 books, the first full-length biography of Hillary Rodham Clinton, a biography of Arkansas educator Ben Elrod, and a collection of his essays on Arkansas. He's also the author of a popular blog known as Rex Nelson Southern Fried, hosts the Southern Fried podcast, and makes regular television and radio appearances. Moving on, we have Robert Kuhn, the managing partner at Impact Management Group. He is a registered lobbyist representing clients before the Arkansas General Assembly, executive branch, and state agencies. Robert also develops strategic communication campaigns involving grassroots media and digital outreach for IMG's public policy and issue advocacy clients. He's advised clients in a variety of industry sectors, including energy, healthcare, technology, telecommunications, financial services, labor, and agriculture. And we have Club 99er, Jay Barth, here with us as well. He is an Emmy and Emma Graves Peace Emeritus Professor of Politics at Hendrix College, where he taught for 26 years, and an adjunct faculty member at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock's Bowen School of Law. Since retiring from Hendrix, Barth has served as both the inaugural Chief Education Officer for the City of Little Rock, coordinating the city's work to support education from birth through higher education in Little Rock. Barth was named Arkansas Professor of the Year at the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching and the Council for Advancement and Support of Education, which is CASE. In 2014, he was named winner of the Southern Political Science Association's Diane Blair Award for Outstanding Achievement in Politics and Government. In 2018, he received the Distinguished Scholar Award from the Arkansas Political Science Association and gained the 2019 Distinguished Service Award from the National Association of State Boards of Education. We have more to go through there, but I'm going to let the panelists actually speak. So please help me welcome the panelists for today.
Thanks, Jason. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having us today. We appreciate it. I will start with a disclaimer, and that is this whole panel, Jason, goes against my now personal philosophy, which is we are over-politicized in this country. Those of you who read the Democrat Gazette, and I hope that's all of you in this room, know I don't write about politics much anymore. I think there's too much of it. I write about economic development in Arkansas. I write about interesting Arkansans, interesting places, but I do wander back into my old field from time to time. So we will do that today, knowing we're 1 week away from Election Day. But I still think we're over-politicized. The other thing that I will say is kind of a disclaimer at the first is we are right where we were in this state when I was growing up, when we were a one-party Democrat state. We are now a one-party Republican state. And what does that mean? It means November's boring in Arkansas, really. Let's just be honest about it. The old tantamount to, as they used to say when I was growing up, the Arkansas Gazette and the Arkansas Democrat would always say, winning the Democratic primary is tantamount to election, that November really didn't matter much in Arkansas. And we're pretty much back there. As far as individual races, the action is now in the Republican primary, meaning the action is in the spring. That said, we do have some ballot issues. We have some interesting judicial races. We have a very interesting sales tax race here in Little Rock. So I thought we would touch on all of those, and then I'll try to leave some time at the end for your questions. And if you want to get into other areas, you certainly can, because I have the experts on either side of me. But let's start with where the money's being spent. And that's issue two. Issue two, a little bit of history on this, and most of you will remember this, but probably may not have put it all in context. This all dates back to when we passed the constitutional amendment that allowed 4 full casinos in Arkansas. That was the initiative of the Quapaw tribe of Oklahoma, of course, native to Arkansas. The then head of what's known as the Quapaw Business Council very much wanted a casino in Arkansas, knew he had to have a constitutional amendment to get it done, and politically he got some very good advice. And that is, you don't want Oakland and Hot Springs, and you don't want Southland and West Memphis opposing you. So in essence, he cut them in. And part of that amendment became you could have full casino operations at our 2 existing pari-mutuel betting tracks at that time in Arkansas. Also, knowing that far bigger tribes in Oklahoma had casinos sitting right on the Arkansas border, he in essence cut them in, not to oppose this, with a Russellville location. So it goes back to the Quapaw's political strategy, why we are where we are now. They're the ones that drove the issue but they were in essence cutting in others so they could ensure that it passed, which of course it did. One other thing I want to say, because I always think this is a great lesson in not stereotyping. If I had come to you a month after that election, you know it's passed now, and I said, Russellville and Pine Bluff, one city is going to totally be screwed up when it comes to this thing. They're going to fight each other. There's going to be division there. It's going to take years to get anything built. And one's going to go just as smoothly as it possibly can. Going to be built on time, going to come in under budget, going to start making a lot of money within just a couple of years. Am I not right that 99% of you would have said Pine Bluff would be the city that would totally be messed up? So don't stereotype. It's been just the opposite. So with that said now, we have the Cherokee and the Choctaw opposing each other on this issue. The Cherokee, of course, wanting you to vote no, so their casino can move forward, Legends Casino in Russellville. The Choctaw, of course, wanting you to vote yes to further delay that competition for their casino, whose parking lot actually is in Arkansas. It's in Pecola, Oklahoma, but I can assure you, if you've ever been there, you know it's directly on the state line. The parking lot's in Arkansas, and to hold off that competition. Now, as somebody who's in the Arkansas media, I'm delighted by this war between two Oklahoma tribes because it's bringing millions of dollars. They're running full-page ads in my newspaper, and not many people run full-page ads anymore about anything, unfortunately, as you know. So a lot of money, a lot of spending, but I think, and that's why I wanted to take a couple of minutes of background, a lot of confused Arkansans. So ask me how this thing's going to go, because there are a lot of confused Arkansans. I don't have a clue. So with that, I'm going to open up the experts. I'll start with Robert, who's going to give full disclosure that he is involved in this. So Robert, I'll let you take off on your analysis.
Yeah, I peeked at your sheet over there. I'll probably have to give a couple disclaimers today, and I will. So I am involved in issue 2. It is, every time I talk to somebody that says they're confused, part of me feels like I understand why you're confused, right? Because it is written very confusing, in my opinion. The other part of me goes, we've only spent like $9 million trying to explain it, and that's really frustrating. You know, like you still don't get it. We're trying to tell you what's really going on here, but I think you did a really good job of kind of setting the table. I guess what I would say about issue 2 is, you know, the biggest point of confusion that I hear is, you know, people say, well, they don't even know they're confused. They think they understand it, and they say, well, if it's about local control and it's about giving counties a vote on whether to have a casino, I think Pope County should be able to vote on that. And so they think they're supporting it to give Pope County a vote. The problem with that is that the amendment itself eliminates the 4th casino license completely. It's gone. There will not be a local vote in Pope County. That is the part that the pro side is not telling people, which is, you know, it would be like me saying, Jim, I'm going to give you a gift card to my restaurant for you to come in and get a free steak. And you're like, well, that sounds great. Why wouldn't I want that? And then you show up at my restaurant and we go, we've taken steak off the menu. Oh, when can I come get my free steak? Well, we may put it on the menu in a couple of years. We may not. The new owners we sell to, they may put it on the menu. They may not. But there may never be another steak ever served at this restaurant, but you've got a free gift card for one. That is what issue 2 is. They are saying you can have a local vote on a casino in your community, but there's no license available. It does not exist. The amendment repeals it. So that is the biggest confusion that I hear people say. But I mean, generally speaking, I think that, you know, the message that the pro side, I'll take off my biased hat here. The message the pro side has on issue 2 is that local control, generally speaking, as a philosophical argument, is something that people like to hear. you know, they are naturally drawn to, you know, being able to make a decision for themselves. It is really difficult to kind of push back on that. I think that ultimately y'all have seen the ads, you've seen them in the paper, you've seen them probably on your TV a million times. There are consequences to taking something like this away. The voters, I believe, in 2018, because I was involved in that campaign to put casinos on the ballot, they voted for it because regardless of how you feel about casinos, and I know Jay has a perspective maybe he'll share, but you know, they do generate economic growth. They do create tax revenue. There is a portion of the casino tax revenue that is paid by Oaklawn and Saracen and thank you, Southland, that goes to the highway fund. So those monies are earmarked by state statute to the highway fund. So there's all downstream effects of casinos, whether you like them or not, they are having an economic impact. And so I think that becomes part of what's in the mix when you're evaluating. So I do think that message has started to permeate. I think early on, you know, the local control message is simple and easy, but I think there's a question of as to what are you really getting for that vote?
Jay, where do you see Arkansas voters now? A lot have already early voted, and we're a week out from Election Day.
Well, I totally agree. It's the most confusing amendment I can remember in years, and I've explained it to a lot of smart people in terms of the varied issues involved. I do think local control is a very powerful argument generally, but especially in this state, whether it's about school consolidation, whether it's about alcohol sales, it's a very powerful argument with a grand tradition. That said, I do think that there are a lot of folks who have begun to see real concerns about both out-of-state money. I think are they billionaires, Robert? Yes, out-of-state.
They have billions, yes.
Yes, and also I do think there's a sense that okay, we voted on this and it's a done deal, no matter whether you like that decision in 2018 or not. And so I do think that, and we all know whenever there is confusion, that the no side tends to be advantaged, right? Because the easiest thing to do is to vote no. It's the more conservative thing to do, the safer thing to do. And I think that's probably ultimately where this goes because of the confusion that has been around this issue. That said, I think it is a highlighting of what has been a particularly frustrating year around the issue of direct democracy. It has been a year in which I think that direct democracy, which the people of Arkansas love, have reinforced again and again and again, but it's simply not working on a lot of levels right now. It's not working in terms of activists spending a lot of energy to go out and get signatures and then having it pulled out from under them. I think it's not working in terms of industry spending a lot of money to get things on the ballot, and then at the end of the day, a ballot title decision rips that off the ballot, or doesn't rip it off the ballot, rips it, the votes will not be cast. I think there's just some sense that this whole thing is not working. And on this issue, this is a place where a really, really good ballot guide sent out by the Secretary of State could really clarify a lot of these issues. Lots of states do that and make it understandable to rank and file citizens. Instead, we have to rely upon the tens of millions of dollars spent by folks who have very clear perspectives attempting to confuse the voters. I think we've got some real problems with direct democracy. We need it because the voters of Arkansas said we want it and we want it to work. It's not working really well right now.
All right, there is an issue 1 on the ballot. It is to expand the scholarships from the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery, basically to trade schools. There's no organized opposition. That is going to pass real quickly. I'm going to tell you why I'm voting against it, my contrarian view here. That particular proposal, in my opinion, is a product of what I call the We Don't Need No Education caucus, which is quite large in the Arkansas legislature right now. The we need more plumbers and welders in Arkansas. Well, yes, we do need more plumbers and welders in Arkansas, but we need a heck of a lot more people with bachelor's degrees. We need more people with master's degrees. We need more people with doctorates. The people of Arkansas voted in that lottery to get more Arkansans to college. We are next to last in the nation in our percentage of adults 25 and older that have a bachelor's degree or higher, and we never move the needle on per capita income in Arkansas. So I see it at a time when there is a pervasive anti-intellectual attitude out there at the Capitol as a kind of watering down of what was the original initiative in that. But that's saying it's going to pass, and I'm not going to lose any sleep over it at all. But Jay, you've spent a career in higher education. I did want to add my little point to that, because we have seen governors and recent legislatures consistently starve higher education in Arkansas.
Yeah, and I do think you're right, and I wholly agree with you, because I think this state would be a dramatically different state if we had 10% more of its population with college degrees. And I think that we have reached a point, and understandably, there are jobs that do not, good jobs that do not require college degrees, but I think that there are changes in mindset that come about through higher education. So, but I think this thing's going to pass. I think our poll in September had it 86.
80 something. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'd admit that it's going to pass
It's
easily.
going to overwhelmingly pass. It is not the clearest definition of which programs could be funded. It is not the best drafted amendment of all time, and I think that's worrisome as well. But it's going to pass overwhelmingly, and I think we probably, unless Robert wants to talk about it, I think we know how this one's going to end up.
Robert, want to add anything?
I would just add, I mean, just briefly that, you know, I think there's certainly a lot of discussion about, you know, the importance of a four-year degree, but I mean, I think that the mindset of this particular amendment is to make sure that for those people that are choosing another route, it's not necessarily to encourage people to choose another route, but for those that are choosing another route, for the workforce, that they're not left out of what is, you know, being given to other people, right? If there's an equity to, I'm going to go to trade school, but this person who's going to this college is getting, I don't even know what the amount is, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. You know, but why are we leaving this team, this class of people in this different path out? And I think that's how I understand it. Maybe that's too simplistic. I don't know that I see it as much of a driver into that lane as much as an equity for those people that are choosing it.
Yeah, I will make the point is, under the current lottery scholarship, all of our two-year schools are covered under that. Almost all of the former vocational technical schools in Arkansas are now two-year colleges. So they're already covered under what we have now. So I'll move on from that, only to say that unfortunately a regular session of the Arkansas legislature does start in January, and I do feel that we do have, unfortunately in our state, a governor and a large number of legislators who are anti-higher education. So keep an eye on that going forward, because it's a real danger to Arkansas. All right, let's move on to the Chief Justice's race. Robert, again, you're going to have to make a disclaimer here, but I've never been good at reading judicial races. It's just always hard for me to tell how one's going to go.
That makes two of us, Rex, and you've written 3 books and I've written 0. So, you know, I am involved in the Chief Justice race. I think, you know, this is one of the, you know, there's municipal races that are nonpartisan. Obviously, judicial races are also nonpartisan. I think, to your point in kind of getting us kicked off, that everything's hyper-political now. I think that that is a bad thing. I agree with you. I do think that the mindset of the average Arkansan, and really probably the average American, if you're looking at other polling, is very much centered around party. And so when you enter these races that don't have a party attached, you know, to be an informed voter, you actually have to do some research. You actually have to look up people's positions, and judicial races become even more difficult because they can't talk about issues that might come before the court. So they can talk about their ideology, they can talk about their values, but they're really limited in what a judicial candidate is able to say. And that is a challenge, I think, when you're running a campaign. So, you know, this one you have 2 sitting justices. There were actually 3 in the, during the primary, which was actually their general. This is the runoff election. You know, traditionally, you know, a sitting justice would have an advantage. Traditionally, in my opinion, a female would have an advantage. And so you've now got a runoff election between 2 sitting justices that are both females. So some of your natural advantages from a candidate standpoint are already kind of, you know, washed out with each other. So, you know, as far as I'm, you know, could tell, you know, I think it is, it's one of those things where it's been politicized some. I think, trying to still be objective, I think Justice Baker has what I just can't really explain. Maybe Jay, you can. There's some following in rural Arkansas that I can't explain why it's there, but I know that it's there. That she kind of just has some default people vote for her. I think that plays into this race. On the other side, I think Justice Wood has articulated kind of a vision for the Chief Justice role. She's been very involved. She's been all over the state at a lot of events. Justice Baker has not done any of those things for whatever reason, I don't know. She's not been on the campaign trail. And so, I think that's a different balance in favor of Justice Wood just from her activity and her articulating priorities, which Justice Baker hasn't done. So, it's a nonpartisan race. It has not had a whole lot of money spent either way. I'm not giving predictions, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, I think, Rhonda Wood, Justice Wood clearly has Republican heritage, but she hasn't had enough resources to play that up in a way that would really allow her to take full advantage of it with the broader electorate. Obviously, party activists know of her ties, her historic ties to the party, but she's not been able to take advantage of that, which is clearly an advantage in a Republican state. You're totally right. Justice Baker has won race after race that she probably shouldn't have won with almost no resources, and it's almost always about rural votes. This time, she has rural votes added to it, some more progressive votes, progressive voters, mainly in Pulaski County and Northwest Arkansas, who have anger about the removal of the abortion amendment, the dynamics around that, the whole proposed abortion amendment, and there's a lot of frustration around that. And so I do think that Baker is going to get a lot of votes from progressive voters who might not have been particularly engaged in the race at all because they see them both as somewhat equivalent, but I think that has changed the dynamics just a little bit and politicized it and made it a lot more partisan. I think it's a coin flip, despite the fact that one candidate has spent almost no money, the other candidate not much money, and we have seen almost no outside money, which we had seen for a decade and a half in judicial races in Arkansas because of the interest in switching the power on the Supreme Court. The power has switched, and now this is really some of the remnants left behind who's going to be the Chief Justice.
Jay, I'll stick with you, and then I'll bounce back over to Robert on this one. But there are some contested legislative races. I said we're back to Tantamount 2, but there are some contested races. Democrats at this point find themselves hoping to pick up just a handful of seats to have a little bit more influence in the legislature.
Yeah, the key number is in the House of Representatives is 26 votes. Because if a party has 26 votes, that means that they have some influence over almost every piece of legislation involving taxing and spending. Because of the way the Constitution is written, almost all those measures require 3/4 vote. And so because Democrats are because they're so small, they do actually work together pretty well. They would then be able to stand and have a place at the table on those issues and on other issues as a result. There are 3 spots in the state where most all of those races that are contested are. One set of races is up in Northwest Arkansas, which is changing very quickly, and a lot of those districts that were even drawn just a handful of years ago now look different demographically. And there's another set in the northern part of Pulaski County, which are competitive, and then there are a set of races over in the Delta that are competitive. At least one case, a majority black district that a white candidate, white Republican, represents at this point. So those are the places where the races are. And the switch in the top of the Democratic ticket to Kamala Harris being the nominee for the Democrats has really made a difference in terms of the dynamics a bit, in that those are probably the places in the state, Northwest Arkansas, Pulaski County, and the Delta, where Kamala Harris is going to perform much better than Joe Biden would have. Now, how much better, we don't know, but probably significantly better, and that has ramifications because now we are in pretty much a single party voting mode for most folks who show up at the polls.
Robert, your read on where we go legislatively.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily forecasting many upsets, but I mean, I kind of remember saying this last time I was here is, the right candidate in the right district would have a shot based on what turnout does. And I think Kamala Harris, being the Democratic candidate, probably gives at least some hope that one or two of those seats may flip. I'm not necessarily expecting that they will, but I totally agree. Democrats are in a really tough spot because they have to decide, they know what those spots are. They know where the best opportunities are, but if they only focus solely on those particular races, they don't look like they have a vibrant party and they don't look like they're trying to grow the map. So then they have to spread a few other places and that diverts attention and resources, but everybody knows the joke that it's really maybe a little bit around Little Rock and it's a little bit of Northwest Arkansas in the right pockets is where they would actually have a chance, I think.
All right, let's bring it home to Little Rock now with the sales tax election, which we were talking about as we ate lunch, and I declined to make a prediction because I can't figure that one out either. The one thing I can tell you is it will be a lot closer than the last time the mayor tried, when it went down by well over 60%. Mayor Scott has reached out to others this time. He has listened to others, listened to their advice, put some things in there that I personally think would be very good for our economy in Little Rock. Our economy is doing very well right now. We had another big jobs announcement at the port just this morning, in fact, and the stage is set for Little Rock to really thrive economically. So I think the economy's better, and it's really, personally speaking, time to invest in our city. So I'm strongly for it. That said, I don't know how it's going to go because we're not in a special election. We're now in a general election. So, Jay, I'll start with you, then I'll go to Robert and kind of get your read on where you think this stands here in Little Rock.
Yeah, so it lost a similar proposal, not exactly the same, lost 62-38 a few years ago. We're now back with a similar measure. There was more unanimity on the city board for this measure. There was only one person who didn't vote. I guess two people didn't vote for it. It also has stronger Chamber of Commerce support, more visible, more active Chamber of Commerce support, and a lot of other folks involved in economic development. I think it still, there is lingering frustration about the lack of transparency. Some people would say that's legit. Other people say, I can go on the website and it looks pretty transparent. I can see where these things are, what's going to be spent on. But some people continue that lingers. I do think it's a very interesting, Mayor Scott has won 2 races by significant margins, but there is resistance to some of the measures he puts forward. And he has not yet shown that transferability to his major policy proposals. I think if it passes, and it would, I think, be a close vote, if it passes, I think it'll be due to Kamala Harris, because this is going to be, in Little Rock, an overwhelmingly Democratic vote this cycle. I think it will probably be in the high 60s for Kamala Harris in the city of Little Rock. And you got a lot of Democrats who show up to vote and tend to vote for a tax. I mean, that's they don't vote for every tax, but that's kind of their bent is to vote for a tax. I still don't think all of those folks will vote for it, but I do think that I think it could eke out a win as a result of the electorate and how different that electorate's going to be than that electorate a few years ago.
And Robert, I think the mayor is kind of counting on that. He's looking at this as basically his base that has put him in office twice now will be for this tax because he's the one pushing it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a different dynamic to run something like this at a general election because, the law changed on what you can do at a special election. I think that and disclaimer insert here, I've done some polling on this. I can't get into the ballot score details, but I can tell you that I feel like the mood of the city is different than where we were the last time. I think people feel like the city overall is going in the right direction. I think that makes a huge difference. It's not necessarily, the last time was kind of, I think crime was probably up the last time we did this, as well as just some political issues at City Hall, and so people kind of took that out on that proposal somewhat. And yes, there wasn't as much consensus on the board. On the transparency piece, I would just say there are members of the board that do not always agree on things, and many of them agreed on this. And if there's an idea that there's something not transparent, I think there's plenty of board members that would be happy to provide whatever information anybody wants. But this proposal, it's got something in there for everyone. It's got your kind of bread and butter city improvements, police funding, fire funding, roads and infrastructure funding. It actually has pretty substantial investments in how to deal with homelessness and affordable housing, which I think is unique, but also much needed, and I think people like that. And then, of course, parks and quality of life, I think, is something that, everybody from, your older voters down to your people with young kids, want to see investments in ballparks and things like that. I know a lot of people that travel all over the place, and they're going to Cabot and Benton and all these places for these tournaments. And gosh, if they could just stay here, wouldn't that be much better for the city, both for their daily life, but also for our economic growth, because then those dollars are staying at our restaurants and our hotels and everything. So I'm proudly voting for it. I actually already did vote for it, but I do expect a different outcome than what we saw last time.
All right, before I open it up for questions, I'll do a disclaimer of my own, and that is I have nothing to do with the unsigned editorials in the Democrat Gazette each morning. I know what's there when I read the paper. I'm only responsible for what I write. But Jay, were you as surprised as I was by the pagan endorsement over Thurston in the Democrat Gazette?
There have been several endorsements on the Democrat Gazette's editorial page, and we have seen, I think, in the last couple of years, the shift on that editorial page from its historic stance to a more moderate stance. And then, I think I was surprised by the Blake Tierney endorsement over Joan Adcock with a lot of energy. The endorsement for Antoine Phillips for re-election had a lot of positivity to it, and then of course the sales tax. So, and then of course the John Pagan endorsement. And in that case, there's another case where John Thurston, who is much like a lot of these Chief Justice candidates, fairly nondescript, but with a good ballot title. But that issue of how these ballot measures have been dealt with has tarred him a bit with at least a subset of the electorate. Now, John Thurston's going to win that race. Overwhelmingly, because of partisanship, but there has been some energy brought into that race. Even though John Pagan is spending very little money, there is still some energy there that wouldn't have existed without the kind of frustration promoted by how ballot measures have been dealt with.
I think you would agree, Robert. In a statewide race, though, we are a one-party state, and the R is indeed tantamount to at this point.
Yeah, it's a huge natural advantage, and I don't know that even Secretary Thurston has spent any money in that race either. I don't know that any of the other candidates, there's Libertarian in there too. I don't think anybody's really spent any money, so that's just going to be a shoot from the hip for most people, and I think they're going to pull the lever they're familiar with.
Yeah. All right, one last thing. I kind of want to get a overall feel, since you guys do polling. We are a one-party Republican state right now. That said, we have a Republican governor with the highest disapproval ratings of any governor in the modern polling period. I mean, we have tended to like our governors in Arkansas. I mean, I worked in the governor's office 10 years, and we were almost always in the 60s. Last poll I saw, Sarah Sanders was at 50. The disapproval was at 43. So Jay, just kind of your read of the lay of the land of Arkansas politically here in the fall of 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Sarah Sanders governs much like she campaigns. And she does, I think, borrow some from her boss, Donald Trump, her former boss, in terms of the style. And it is a somewhat polarizing, inherently polarizing style. And I think that continues to linger. Now, do you win elections with that style in this state? Yeah. If you're a Republican, yes. But I think it does produce kind of an ongoing negativity that I would argue is not good for the historic pragmatic approaches to policymaking in this state, which has been a lot more consensus-oriented than I think the atmosphere in which we're now operating. So that's, I think, where it is. I mean, you're right. The only moment I can think of an Arkansas governor since Mike Huckabee became governor, where the governor's been unpopular for a moment was really around school consolidation, and Mike Huckabee during that very clear polarizing moment. But this is much more of a permanent polarization.
Robert?
Yeah, well, I'd start by saying, approval rating does not translate necessarily to what that candidate would get on a ballot. I think that's important to say first, because if it is her approval is around 50%, she's going to get well more than that on a election ballot. I really wish I had some of my chart here, because I think that it's really instructive to just look at where her approval comes from, her favorability comes from, and Jay alluded to it or spoke to it. It's very similar the way that she kind of builds her support base to the way Donald Trump does, right? So near universal support from Republicans, probably 92% plus. Near universal disapproval from Democrats, 93% disapprove, and then, where independents in the middle. And those people in the middle, the independents, are the ones that ultimately, make those two things balance. At the national level, Donald Trump, kind of his numbers will go based on the way independents are. In Arkansas, if you're a little bit tilted to the Republican because there's more Republicans, so you're 92% of your Republicans, which are 48% of the electorate, is going to be more people than your 93% of Democrats that are, 26% of the electorate. But she rises and falls with the independents. I think her style, the issues that she tackles and has kind of hit head on, she doesn't pull punches. She's very straightforward about what she wants to do. I don't think that always sells the best with independents. I don't know that some of the things that she's tackled have necessarily sold with independents, but I think she probably knows that, and I don't think she cares. I think she's focused on doing the things that she thinks are the right approach for the state, and is not worried about what political coalitions think, and is instead, she knows her base is solid on the majority of things that she's pushing, and she knows she's comfortable in election time. I don't know how much she really cares. I've never asked her, how much do you care about your approval numbers? Do you think they're right? Do you think they're wrong? But, come election time, she obviously cares about those numbers. So I just think, Asa Hutchinson used to be 85% with Republicans and probably 30% popular with Democrats and was winning independents by 30, right? So he's lost some Republicans, he's gained the others, and so he might have a higher approval because he's smoothed across the party.
All right, rapid fire here before we run out of time, then I'll leave time for a couple of questions, but I know this was going to be your first question. So start with you, Jay. Who's the next president of the United States, and what made the difference down the stretch for that person?
Don't know. I seriously, I think it...
If you don't say, I'm not saying either.
Come on.
No, I think that if... I'll lay out the two prospective outcomes. If Trump wins re-election, I think it ultimately, of course, is about Kamala Harris's inability to begin to provide convincing answers on the policy front, especially related to the economy and the border. That's simple. I think if she wins, I think it will be because of a series of self-inflicted wounds across now nearly a decade that finally come home, and Americans just say they can't handle it anymore. And so I can imagine a scenario where really either candidate wins all seven of the flip states. I can imagine us being here in a month or six weeks still trying to figure it out. I can imagine either of those scenarios.
Then your answer was what?
It was a blah, blah, blah.
And your answer is what?
I looked at the latest polling before I came because I figured this would come up, and I hate predictions, and feel free to text me when I'm completely wrong. I think that of the states that are, it is a coin flip, of the states that are kind of in question I think the majority of those are ones that traditionally vote for the Democratic candidate. So I will say her is my prediction, but I have 0% confidence. How about that?
Got you. Got time for a couple of questions. Anybody got a burning one? Right back here. All right. Go ahead, Tim.
Hey, thank y'all for being here. One of the issues on the sales tax, for those if you're on the fence, is our Rotary project that we launched during my year. There is funds in there for lighting the Broadway Bridge, so if you're on the fence and that helps you to support Rotary, please do that. And then my question is, what is the possibility of it being a split? Because I don't think everybody understands that you got to vote for twice or against twice. So what are you thinking about whether or not one passes or one doesn't?
Well, I mean, I think you do have to vote twice, right? And people, number one, they need to understand it's not a choice, right? They really are a package, but because of the way the law's written, you have to vote bonding dollars separately, I think, than operations funding.
You've got a 5/8 and you've got a 3/8 is what you've got.
And the
so
3/8 is permanent, and the 5/8 is temporary, and that'll be on the ballot too. I think I wouldn't be able to speak to the ramifications of that. I think, if the 3/8 were to pass and you could build all the capital expenditure projects, you're going to be left with a bunch of stuff you can't service because if the 5/8 fails, because there's no operations dollars for it. I guess alternatively, if the 5/8 passes and you get operational dollars, but you can't build any of this stuff, maybe that's worse. I mean, I think that it's a bad, complicated situation either way, right? You don't want that outcome because then that becomes very difficult. And then you want to talk about really having transparency problems. What do they do when only a portion of the money comes through, and who gets what, and how do you split that up? Then you're going to have a lot of people disappointed about the outcome, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's a real likelihood unless it is just razor thin, and but it has to be really close for that scenario to play out.
I think I had one. Did I have one more back here? All right. If not, thank y'all very much. Appreciate you having us today.
All right. Thank you, Rex, Jay, and Robert, for the primer. I'm sure next week will be a busy one for all of us as we prepare to make our voices heard in the election. As a thank you to our presenters, we've commissioned local Arkansan Sage Holland, a master bead maker out of Mountain Home, Arkansas, to make a commemorative bead representing our Rotary Year theme of global hearts, local hands. I hope it's a good fidget toy for you for the next week and beyond. Next week, we have Brent Williams, the new dean of the U of A Sam Walton School of Business, appointed earlier this year. Their MBA program was ranked number 11 in the nation for best return on investment by the Wall Street Journal. It'll be exciting to see how they build on that legacy. And with that, we are adjourned. See you next week.